I'd like to obviously acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are today, and elders past, present and emerging, and any First Nations people that we are lucky enough to have in the room with us today. I'd also like to say to everyone that I'm really pleased to be back home. I used to live in Honeysuckle, and I helped run an engineering business that did a lot of engineering and construction up and down the Hunter and throughout the Newcastle area, including areas around here. So it's great to be back on a beautiful Hunter day like this. So thank you for having me, albeit at such short notice. Luckily, as they say in the trade, here's one we prepared earlier, and you're lucky enough to have sprung me in today with Peter and Sherman, because we have just conducted a New South Wales-wide employers and business survey of the skills challenges that we have in front of us. As we heard from the Minister just now, governments are incredibly well aware at a federal and a state level of the challenges of the supply chain squeezes that we're seeing globally, and indeed, of course, the rising costs and skills challenges that we've got very much at a peak here in New South Wales and indeed in the Hunter. I think Phil Lowe said yesterday that it was we weren't facing a recession, and I hope he's right. But of course, coming out of COVID so strongly, with our borders so constrained, has inevitable effects, and we're certainly seeing them at the moment. But anyway, back to the survey. You are seeing this for the first time. The report has not actually been fully completed yet, but we've got enough to be able to show some of the initial results from the survey, and they make interesting, if not unsurprising, reading. When I've kind of gone through that for a few minutes, I will pass over to Peter and then through to Sherman. And the reason the three of us are up here is really a reflection of the focus that Business New South Wales and our place-based organisations like Business Hunter place on skills. Skills and human capital is one of our 4 policy pillars. So it's no lucky coincidence that we're very happy to talk about skills, and we're very happy to talk about the growth in human capital, and particularly the skills that are required in the future, because it's part of our DNA. It really is what we do, and as the leader of the policy and advocacy membership kind of side of the organisation, it's something which challenges us in our conversations with not only our members, but also empowers us to speak with real authority to government, both federal and state, on the need to encourage the growth in skills and to support the interaction between business, education and government and the development of those skills. And also we do walk the walk as well as talk the talk, and Peter will talk about this later, but we do of course help run one of the nation's most effective apprenticeship support and training organisations, and Peter leads that for us. So we do have feet on the ground. We do understand some of the challenges that particularly small and medium-sized businesses have in finding and training the right staff, and we seek to help in that area. And I don't want to steal Peter's thunder, but Peter has also just conducted a survey of over 5,000 apprentices, and he's going to share some of that information with us today. So we're really going to see a bit today of what the employers are saying, and also a little bit of what the apprentices are saying, and then back to the policy pillars. Well, we've got Dr. Sherman Chan with us. Sherman, as Bob just said, is our chief economist, and of course is incredibly interested in the economic impact of having a great skills network, great skills development within our jurisdiction, and of course the challenges that the economy faces when we don't have enough to go around. Anyway, without further ado, can I have the first slide, please? Oh, yes, you can, because I got it. So as I said, look, there's not really too much surprises behind me here. 93% of businesses say that they are currently experiencing a skills shortage. I don't think anyone would be shocked by that. But what is interesting is the trending here. So what we do is we ask similar questions every year, so we can start tracking trends we can follow trends that go through the years and the decades as our skills surveys move on. And you can see there in 2017, only 59% felt that there was a problem. So you can see a really significant increase in this year. Even from last year, you see, 20% increase in businesses. Last year, it was 3/4 of businesses felt that they were short. This year, statistically, pretty much all of them, right? And then we see here that 72% had tried to fill vacancies 3 times or more. And this is a very common thing that we're hearing, that businesses are going again and again to the marketplace through traditional and non-traditional means, and in some cases are having no responses at all to their offers of employment. We are starting to see businesses getting around this in novel ways, and I'll maybe come back to that a little bit later, but I think it's fair to say that your kind of placing things on Seek isn't cutting the mustard anymore. That you need to think very carefully about your needs and how you run your business, as well as how you operate with the other businesses around you to make the most of a difficult situation. And again, I'm happy to take some questions on some of the some of the solutions that people are coming up with around that. Yeah, this 26% not had any applicants at all. I suspect that's probably a pretty low statistic, given the fact that some people have put stuff out there 3 times and they had nobody. 99% of businesses say skills shortages are having an effect on their business. This follows from a very recent survey that we did around the rising costs and effects of the supply chain squeeze, and these results are pretty consistent. We know that there are logistical challenges. We know there's a global supply chain challenge, if not crisis, at the moment, and we are starting to adapt quite quickly to deal with that. In a separate survey that you may ask Sherman some questions around for the details, we found that the Hunter in particular and the Murray Riverina were adapting more quickly than the rest of New South Wales to the supply and cost issues through various ways. But nonetheless, it's a total, everybody is affected by this, and everyone is having to adapt in one way or another to the lack of staff there. Losing customers and missing opportunities. Well, of course, that's always the case, isn't it? You can see that in the food and beverage industry most obviously on high streets when you see cafes shutting earlier and earlier in CBDs. I was in Melbourne recently, and I can get coffee after midday on Collins, and that, I think, is a real indication of how it's affecting the big cities as badly as it is the regional areas and our medium-sized cities. And here we are. It's not just an experienced staff issue. We often hear the conflation, I think, of labour issues and skills issues, and people talking about them as though they're the same thing. And I've often said, they're 2 separate issues, but right now, they're pretty much the same problem. We are missing entry level, we're missing graduates, we're missing experienced people that usually would flow in and out through our borders as required for those complex projects or complex commercial issues that need to have international support, and we're not getting them anymore. When we do a survey that is very well engaged with, we get an awful lot of free text. And we actually get as much from that kind of qualitative data as we do from the quantitative data. We get an awful lot of sentiment coming through. I'll maybe just leave that up there for a couple of minutes. I don't need to read these for you, but they really back up what I've been saying, that our members and those people who are members who are engaging with us through the surveys are so frustrated that they're not only willing to do the survey, but they're also willing to sit down and put their thoughts into words. And of course, we as an organisation can reflect not only the numbers, but also the sentiment to those in charge in our country, federal and state level, because of course these are real people with real businesses they're not just numbers on a sheet. These are actually people who are crying out for assistance at the moment because the situation is, of course, not easy. Got a lot of people making the comment like the top one here around unemployment being low, but the play between training our own overseas migrants, borders, and what the balance is, and obviously we're out of balance at the moment. Certainly very much seeing the investment from government continuing in apprenticeship and TAFE and future skills is very encouraging, but right now it's probably jam tomorrow for many. So what we think the key priorities are here is obviously to increase and continue and increase that education and training in our community, particularly increasing the funding around the vet sector. Many of you will have seen the amount of time we've put into advocating for what Tony was just talking about, the fact that retiring people at 65 seems in the present day to be a terrible waste of mature experience. Whether those mature and experienced people come back part-time just to mentor, to help apprentices learn, to help businesses deal with growing workforces or navigate their way through growth pains or challenges in front of them, or whether they come back part-time, or whether they come back to help in care to enable mothers to go, young mothers and young families to go back to work. All of these are possible, but not right now with the tax settings. It's not preferential for people to go back to work after retirement, and you can understand why, because the tax settings are not right for that. And so we're advocating very strongly for those tax settings at the federal level to be reset to enable people to have choice. Not to force people back to work, but to enable them to have choice to return at a time and place of their choosing, at an effort level of their choosing, and not be penalised for it. Supporting the return of overseas workers. This is a really thorny issue for Australia at the moment. We closed the borders for very good public health reasons, and for many reasons this is not it's not opened and flowed back in the way that we might have wanted. Businesses have learnt to cut expenses out of their bottom line by not moving people around so much, which has forced up the price of international flights, particularly long haul. It's had a really detrimental effect on Australia being at the end of long haul flights. It's not easy just to hop here from many places apart from New Zealand, and New Zealand is going through the same problems as we are, only perhaps in some ways slightly worse. So we are constrained by price point at the moment. The long-haul flying industry is certainly suffering at the moment, and federal government, I think needs to realise and needs to act really quickly on making sure that visas are available in less than 75 days, which is what we're hearing is a wait list for some people trying to come here to help. They want to come here, they want to contribute to Australian economy and our society and our community. They have skills, they want to get here, 75 days. And that's where Canada wins, right? Particularly because the world is looking for the same kind of skills, the same kind of growth, all at the same time. We are in direct competition with other similarly sized growing economies. And until we can make it easier, particularly easier and quicker, and potentially also cheaper for people to come here, I think that'll last for a long time. Then the last one is improving this information to job seekers, and the reason I've just kind of left that on a line at the bottom is because it's an absolute segue to what Peter's going to talk about today. How do we improve that? And I will leave that because Peter will undoubtedly follow on from there. And I'll finish on this. What are we going to do next? So we're going to release the preliminary report next week for consultation, and we'll be very keen for anyone who's got feedback to pass it through to Amanda. And Tim Burt, can you stand up, raise your hand? Tim Burt is the author of this report. He's here in the room, so if you've got any burning questions that amateurs like myself can't the professional is here and will be very keen to take your name and address down for a copy of the report or take some more feedback. We are going to do some further analysis of the occupations. We're going to dive to the next level down and look where that is. It's a little bit difficult at the moment to kind of judge where the deepest problems are in the occupations and sectors because they're all bad. You know, it's a bit like looking at the top of the ocean and trying to judge which bit's deeper than another. You really do need to dive down until you find the bottom. So we do need to do some more work in there, and of course we're working with governments to help them address the issue. We do have a very supportive government here in New South Wales on these issues. I think you know, Minister Henskins and Minister Mitchell and others are working very hard, and certainly you saw a budget only yesterday, of course, that talked a lot to future skills and education. But we certainly need to punch up into the new government at federal level and make them realise that it's not only a homegrown issue here and we can't just grow it all. We do need to have that flex in a global market to bring people in and out easily. Amanda's here. We know it's her birthday. Happy birthday, Amanda. If you've got any feedback or thoughts, please send Amanda a note and finish it with happy birthday. And I do think that Tony's introduction to all this was absolutely spot on. Thanks, Tony. I think you know, the wisdom that came out from your few words at the beginning really did sum it up.